The She-Hulk series has finally arrived, and she is answering the tough questions Marvel fans have been asking for years.
Captain America,
But Jennifer Walters, the real thing we want to know is, do you? Kevin Feige, please. I will never ask for anything else again. The first episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law has been released to the public. This was actually one of the shows I was most looking forward to since the moment they announced it. And that's not me being sarcastic. I remember when they announced all these shows that would be releasing to Disney Plus, and She-Hulk was the one I most wanted to see. So what I'm going to do here for you guys is giving you my spoiler review of episode 1, pointing out some Easter eggs you might have missed, diving into the post-credits scene, speculating to what could happen the rest of the season, but also trying to be fair and honest, because let's face it, after several Marvel shows, they are not all hitting the same. So please leave me your opinions down below. What did you think of episode 1? Do you like the direction this is headed in? Is the comedy working for you? Because I think that's the thing that'll make or break She-Hulk for you, is whether you're actually laughing at the comedy they're presenting and can kind of vibe with the silly fun nature of the show. Now, as we're beginning here, I do want to mention I did get to see the first 4 episodes of She-Hulk, and without giving any spoilers away from what's coming in the next couple of episodes, I'm loving the show. The comedy for me, even though it's cringy at times and doesn't always land, for the most part, it is making me laugh. There's a couple of fourth wall breaking jokes in the next couple episodes that I think just hits the nails and addresses some of these Marvel fans lately, specifically the a-holes who say MCU or are review bombing this thing before even having seen a single episode. The cameos to me are also really fun. Wong is gonna be so well loved throughout the series in the episodes he shows up in, and they pair Wong up with another character in the series that, you know what, I think is so hilarious, the paired relationship they give, but I could see some people being annoyed by it, but I think it's gonna be iconic. And admittedly, even though there's not a lot of action in the next couple of episodes, I think the first episode is the most action-packed episode out of the 4. To me, I am loving how fast the story is moving. There is a bigger story going on week to week, but at the same time, every episode is kind of its own self-contained thing. There's a problem at the start that gets resolved by the end, and then you just get little teases and sprinkles to a bigger story that will unfold through these 9 episodes. I think that's actually working really well for the show and is why I'm enjoying it so much, because a lot of the times these Disney Plus series have one goal in mind and then they just tease you and tease you and tease you, then they just rush and reveal everything for the final episode, and it doesn't always end well. So I just wanted to mention that before we get into the episode, but now let's just go straight into episode 1. So at the beginning of episode 1 of She-Hulk Attorney at Law, we see Jennifer Walters is preparing herself for a very big case. I love how this opened up, because I was sitting there seeing this episode going, oh, she's already She-Hulk? They talk about her turning into her green form and whatnot, so I'm like, are we gonna see her origin later? What's going on? And as I'm thinking of all this, Jennifer Walters literally says to my face,
Yeah, about that. It's true. I am a Hulk.
and from that moment on, I knew I was going to love this show just because of how they were playing it. Bringing us to a flashback of a few months ago, showing us how she became She-Hulk, where she's in a car with her cousin, Bruce Banner. And this is something else I love that they included in here, because it touches upon something we've all been wondering: how has Bruce Banner been going back and forth from human form to Smart Hulk form? And we get the answer right here, saying that he's developed a device specifically made for him that, as long as he's wearing it, will keep him in human form. If we actually go to the post-credit scene for Shang-Chi, we see Bruce Banner is wearing that device on his arm, which finally explains something that fans were just confused about. From here, we see Jennifer Walters start to ask Bruce about his co-worker Steve Rogers and whether he thinks he's a virgin. But the conversation gets cut short because a ship from the planet of Sakaar appears right in front of them, causing them to get in an accident. Now, there's a lot to dive into here. One, we can see the exact design of this ship is one that the Grandmaster had from Thor Ragnarok. It's just painted a different color. Bruce Banner also mentions later on in this episode that the ship most likely arrived to give him a message from the planet of Sakaar. And I'll tell you guys right now, in the first 4 episodes I've seen, they do not address exactly what the ship wanted to tell Bruce. I just wanted to say that before I start speculating, so you don't think I'm spoiling something for you. But most Marvel fans will tell you that this is most likely them resetting up a World War Hulk storyline, where the show She-Hulk might actually introduce the long-lost child of Hulk, Scar. Now, the MCU in the comics did the Planet Hulk storyline very differently. In the comics, the Illuminati agreed to send Hulk out to another planet because he was too dangerous to stay on Earth, and he eventually ends up on Sakaar, where he conquers that world, becomes the king of it. Sadly, though, the ship that sent him to that planet explodes, killing his wife and family that he's made while he was there. That eventually leads him to want to go back to Earth and get revenge on the people who sent him away. And through this storyline, we actually find out that Hulk had a son he never knew about, Scar, and it looks like that comic storyline is being adapted into the MCU. Now, from what I just told you, that's very different from what we've gotten so far. When Hulk was sent to Sakaar, he did not become the ruler of that planet. Instead, he just became a famous figure fighting in these gladiator battles for the Grand Master. But like we also saw in Thor Ragnarok, time works very differently on that planet. Like when Thor and Loki were transported to the planet and Loki got off a second early, he was actually there for a week before Thor showed up. So even though it's only been a few years since Hulk has been on Sakaar, because time works differently, this child could possibly now be fully grown, old enough to maybe want to go look for his father. We'll just have to wait and see on that, but this is definitely Marvel setting up a World War Hulk storyline that has been rumored for the longest, and man, I need me another solo Hulk movie. But aside from that, we now get the MCU's version of She-Hulk's origin that I actually do think works better for this universe. It's already been established how poisonous and dangerous the blood is of Bruce Banner from the solo Incredible Hulk movie, because we saw Stan Lee straight up die. So having Bruce's blood accidentally infuse into a cut of Jennifer Walters and then her transforming, I think works well. In the comics, it was a mob hit and then Bruce had the decision to do a blood transfusion, and even though that's sort of dilemma would have been cool, part of me feels like this version of Bruce would not have given that blood transfusion because he knows how dangerous and cursed a life as a Hulk is, or he would just think she'd die from it. But after the accident and some wandering in the woods, Jennifer Walters eventually ends up somewhere else, Mexico to be exact, where Hulk kind of has a safe house. This was also something else I loved included in the series and just made the MCU feel more connected, because we come to find out that Tony Stark had set up this little hideout for Bruce to kind of work as a lab and sanctuary while he figures out his stuff as the Hulk. We even get to see an Iron Man helmet in here, and in the background, I believe that is the gladiator helmet that Hulk wore in Thor Ragnarok. I also wouldn't even be surprised if the t-shirt Jennifer Walters is wearing is actually one of Tony Stark's, because he was always known to wear these type of rock band shirts. When Jennifer confronts Bruce on what's going on and why she's here, we get even more information that I think does work and some of it doesn't. For one, Bruce explains she was able to become a Hulk instead of dying from his blood because their family shares some unique genetic code that makes the gamma enhance them. I thought that worked. Then Hulk also explains that Jennifer Walters' blood is even more unique, so unique that he was able to use her specific blood to cure his arm, meaning the damage that the Infinity Gauntlet caused Hulk in Endgame will no longer be impairing him, which I guess is a good thing. I don't necessarily want to see the Hulk in an arm brace, but ever since Bruce Banner has become Smart Hulk, we have never seen him be vicious or even get into a brawl fight the same way we would old Hulk, and I think that's just something we're missing. So who cares if your arm's fixed if you're not gonna use it to tussle, man? But then they go even further with the explaining, saying that he can't make a device that he was wearing that would keep her from becoming Hulk because that took him years to make and was made for his specific genetic code. I think it was just a lot of over explaining that didn't need to happen, that is just kind of over complicating all this Hulk situation, especially when we start talking about the Abomination in later episodes, which I do got some complaints about. But continuing on here, Bruce Banner has devised a plan to kind of get her through becoming a Hulk since he's been through it himself. And I kind of actually like how dramatic Bruce Banner is at times, saying it took me 15 years to get to where I am now. And early on in the MCU, we would see the Savage Hulk that was a problem, would cause destruction, and has probably even killed some innocent lives before. I did see some people kind of complain that Jennifer Walters was being smug and rude to her cousin for trying to help her, when I think some people are missing the point of what she's going through. She's showing that she has control over herself when she turns into the Hulk. She retains her personality, and even though Bruce Banner has the best of intentions to help her, he still kidnapped her to another country, Mexico, put her in a death trap that she thought was gonna kill her, and is now telling her that she will not be able to leave this island for at least 15 years. I'm sorry, but I would be smug too and want to throw hands with my cousins. No quiero quedarme en Mexico. You know how hard it was for me to come here already? The other complaints I was seeing with people is that the MCU was doing the typical thing of making the female character much stronger than the male counterpart to bring them down, when I don't really see that at all. We still see that Hulk is the smarter of the two. He's also still the stronger. And even specifically in this scene where Jennifer Walters can better balance herself over the Hulk, that makes sense to me. If you put a bodybuilder next to someone who's lean and flexible, they're gonna be able to perform gymnastics and balance much better than a bodybuilder. What I think Marvel was trying to show here is just some of the advantages and disadvantages that both have. And they're more upfront about that when the two start to fight each other, but before that we have Bruce trying to show his cousins the upsides to being the Hulk. One of the things is being able to drink as much alcohol as they want without getting drunk. I think this was a nice callback to kind of Captain America, where Steve Rogers had the same thing. He's someone who can't get drunk, and since the Hulk and the Captain America serum are supposed to be derived of the same thing, it would make sense why they have that built into their abilities. And even though I just hate this image of Hulk wearing a tank top, acting this way, making drinks, I'm like, this isn't the Hulk I want to see, Marvel, but whatever. I did like the little moment here of Bruce touching upon how him and Tony built this bar together. They carved their initials, and even the little mention that Tony would just drink, which is something we know he was known for, and just complain about Steve Rogers. Little things like that help the MCU feel more connected and fill in little backstories that we didn't know about. Still, come the next day, Jennifer is now completely fed up with just being a hostage to her cousin. She's shown that she's capable of taking care of herself and controlling her abilities, as well as mentioning she has no interest to be a superhero, which I also like that the show is making that clear, that she just wants to continue her law practice. But Bruce not only worrying about the safety of her cousin, mentioning there could be people who come after you because of these abilities, or the opposite, your abilities could hurt someone else, lead the two to get into a fight. And I just think it's so surprising. This is the first time in forever that we get to see Smart Hulk version actually fight. I know he was in the Battle of Endgame, but he never got his own solo moment like a lot of heroes in that battlefield. Like, we were all hoping he would get a Thanos rematch, and that didn't happen. So I was just kind of happy to see the Hulk be a brawler for once, even if it was against his cousin and he was obviously holding back. He's not trying to kill his cousin, guys. I think if he really wanted to, he could overpower her. But I do love what Marvel does in these moments in showing the advantages and different abilities that each one of these Hulks have. Like, we get to see Hulk do his famous hand clap that we haven't seen since the Incredible Hulk, but we get to see She-Hulk's version of the hand clap that isn't as powerful, but if done repeatedly can be annoying and mimics the sound wave cannons that were also in the Incredible Hulk and were shown to be a weakness of the Hulk. At the end of it all, though, the battle stops once they accidentally destroy the bar, and after we just saw what that bar means to Bruce Banner, I kind of like how he was sad about it and made sure Jennifer helped him rebuild it. Finally coming to terms with his cousin's wish and saying if she wants to go back to her law practice, she's able to, having us come full circle to the beginning of the episode where Jennifer Walters is trying to plead her case until the supervillain, who we find out is a superhero influencer, okay, Titania, comes in to wreak havoc on the courtroom, and Jennifer Walters has to suit up. I am going to be honest, I did not like the way this fight went down. I thought it was awkwardly cut and edited. Like, one moment Titania is standing on one side of the courtroom, the next she's throwing a giant desk and Jennifer Walters is able to stop it and then punch her away. I thought it could have been a little more exciting than that. But that does end the episode, bringing us to a post-credit scene, and all 4 episodes that I saw do have post-credit scenes, all mainly just little jokes. But this is probably the funniest one of the 4, where they confirm that Steve Rogers was not a virgin. If you want to be specific on who it was, going back to Captain America First Avenger, probably obvious that this is the woman that Steve Rogers lost his virginity to as they were going through the marathon of that USO tour.
He lost his virginity to a girl in 1943 on the USO tour.
So sorry, Peggy, you got sloppy seconds. Again, I know the show isn't for everybody, and I do have my gripes as we go along. There will be more things, like I said, with Abomination that I definitely want to talk about. But overall, I'm having tons of fun with this show. I'm excited to see where it all leads. I think a lot of you guys are going to love some of the fourth wall breaking jokes we have coming up, and when Wong comes in, that's going to be a lot of fun for people. But now I throw it off to you, Marvel fans. What did you think of episode 1 of She-Hulk? Are you liking the direction of the show? Were you not? What was your favorite moment? What could you speculate? And everything, be sure to let me know. Just make sure you're subscribed, because we'll be covering the show every week with a new episode. But as always, my name is Chris. Take care.